There you go. We're live. So I'll make you the host again, and please make me the co-host, okay?
Okay.
Because I'll be staying the whole time.
Okay, great. There you go.
So, people are will be coming in a few minutes, so I'll just be in the background. Just call my attention if you need anything, okay?
Okay, sounds good. Thanks.
All right, perfect.
Hey, Lee.
Hi,
Good afternoon.
good afternoon.
How are you today?
Uh, except for a car challenge, doing okay.
Cars can be a challenge.
Today, I just found out that we can't get an appointment till May 27th.
Wow.
Everybody suddenly is back out on the roads.
Oh, I guess that's what it is. And everybody's getting those car servicings done. Huh?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Where are you calling in from?
Encinitas, California, which is near San Diego.
Okay. All right. Well, we got both ends of the country anchored then. I'm in North Carolina on the coast here. So
I spent a year one summer in North Carolina. I was at Fort Bragg.
Oh, okay. That explains it.
For sure. I did my ROTC summer training there.
Oh, really? So were you in the Air Force then?
Army.
Army. Okay.
Army.
Army ROTC. My brother was Air Force ROTC.
It was a great way to go.
Yeah, he did his full 30 years, whatever, retired a colonel.
So he did well.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, I did my 2 years and then got out into the business world.
Yeah, that's.
But I enjoyed my 2 years service. It was a great rewarding experience.
We're going to have some other people join us here. It is a small group, but we've got should have some other people. But we'll hang out here and wait a couple more minutes.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
I've used Excel, and I used to use Excel a lot. Now that I'm retired, I haven't used it very much. But I'm in a various groups that I thought knowing the Google Docs systems would be helpful.
Yeah, if you know the Microsoft suite, the Google suite is real easy to pick up. There's more similarities and differences. And That's a lot of what we do today, because the class sort of assumes people know Excel at least at a passing level. So we draw a lot of comparisons between the two. And
How did you get involved in teaching this?
well, I have a somewhat of a teaching background. Was looking for something to do as a semi-retirement job, and my wife actually found it on the internet, and I applied, and I was one of the early guides. I've been around for over a year now.
Oh, wow.
Which
it's a
is
great service.
It is a great idea. I'm not one of the founders, so I can't claim any responsibility for it, but it was a wonderful idea, and they've done a good job of developing it. So.
Mm-hmm. I was talking about it this morning because I'm part of a small group of people that gathered. We're all learning Spanish.
Ah, okay.
And one of the other people in the group also goes to set up and uses a lot of your classes.
Yeah.
So we were trying to tell everybody else in our group about how great it is.
Oh, great. Thanks. We appreciate that. Yeah, it really has evolved. Well, when I started, there were 3 guides, and all we taught was tech classes. And so it's really evolved from that fairly humble start, but it was still the same mission, as helping seniors get skills that they don't have, and keep their mind sharp and learn new things. So it's really just that basic mission that's expanded well beyond teaching a few tech courses.
Yeah. Well, it's a great mission.
You may end up getting a one-on-one here, so we'll see what happens. I'm going to go ahead and get started with some of my housekeeping. Have you taken some other classes already, Lee?
I have, yeah.
Okay. All right, so you kind of know how this goes. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and start getting things set up. And if nobody else joins, we'll just have a...
Who is Phil?
Oh, Phil. Sorry. Lee.
No, I'm Lee, but who is Phil?
Oh, Phil is with our PA support group. He's with Get Set Up as well. Yeah, he helps manage the class, manage the chat.
Good to see you, Lee.
Hi.
Yeah, sorry.
You.
Yeah, actually, we're not that required to turn on our camera, because usually we just work in the background, supporting some technical issues.
Yeah,
kind of like those.
Yeah,
I
understand.
All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen and start getting set up, because we do have a lot to cover. And so, so you should be able to see my slides now. And I'm gonna move.
I can.
I'm gonna move the pictures over to my other monitor so they're not in the way. And certainly I'm gonna leave the mics open. I usually mute everyone, but since it's gonna be a small group, we're gonna leave the mics on. And let me open up the chat window, which we still maybe put a few things in. I'm going to put at least one thing in the chat. Oh, there's Judy coming in. Hi, Judy.
Sorry, I am late. I'm so sorry.
You haven't missed a thing. We're just getting started.
All right. So
you're right on time. We're just kind of getting everything set up and ready to get started. So we're good. And in fact, we are starting right now. There may be some other people join us midstream, but we're going to start without them. So we're going to get going, because there's a lot to cover. All right. So let's go ahead and officially start the class. So this is Google Sheets Basics, and I do want to welcome you to the class. My name is Wade Yarber, and I'll be the guide for the class today. Briefly about myself, I'm from a small town called Mason, Tennessee, which is just outside of Memphis, Tennessee. Very small town, 500 people. I have my PhD in experimental psychology, but I had a minor in computer science. So I've always kind of done technology plus psychology. Most of my career was spent designing, installing, and training users on hospital information systems. So I've done a lot of adult training as well. And what I love about teaching here at Get Set Up is the fact that I'm teaching people that are in the class because they're interested in the subject matter, not because their employer made them take the class. And that's what we try and do at Get Set Up, is to create an environment where people can learn things they're interested in, along with other people that are interested in the same topic. You can see and interact with each other, as well as interacting with the guide. The class is being recorded, and you can get a copy of that recording by sending an email to help@getsetup.io and adding the name of the class and the date you attended. I'm going to put that in the chat in case you don't have that already. That's a very handy email to have. It's really your one-stop shopping for any questions, comments, complaints, any communication you have. You can send it there and it'll get routed to the right person. We are live streaming the class today as well, so I do want to welcome anyone joining us via live stream. Thanks for joining us and hope you enjoy the class as well. But I do want to point out that the only way to get what I call the full Get Set Up experience is to go to our website and register for the class. That way you can interact with the other learners as well as ask questions of the guide. And finally, Get Set Up is not paid to promote any of the products that we train on. We are purely trainers. So let's take a look at the agenda for today. We're going to talk about how to create new worksheets and open existing worksheets in Google Sheets, how to copy and format information, how to use formulas and functions. And the class assumes that you have at least a passing familiarity with Excel. It's not required, but it's a kind of an assumption. So we will talk about how to import spreadsheets from Excel into Google Sheets and how to convert from Google Sheets back to Excel for people that want to keep one foot in both worlds. So a little bit about how Sheets differs from Excel. Google Sheets is a browser-based program, which means you can access it and use it from any device that supports a browser. And it works on any browser, Chrome, Firefox, Edge, whichever one you're using, which makes it very flexible. Excel is a desktop program, so you do have to install that on your device, and it runs under the operating system instead of in the browser. It does work on Windows or Mac, so it's fairly universal. Excel does have more functions and features. Excel has been around for a long time, and so it's had time to develop a lot of functions and features. It's not the original one. I don't know if anybody remembers VisiCalc. It was the first spreadsheet. There you go, Lee remembers. And then Lotus 1-2-3 was sort of the next king of the hill, but Excel's been top of the hill for a long time. Excel also handles bigger data sets. Excel, and this is hard to believe, will handle 1 million rows and 16,000 columns. I don't know how anyone, even a corporation, needs that much information in a single sheet, but that's the maximums. Google Sheets, 50,000 rows and 40 columns. I think that's adequate for most people, certainly individuals. So I've never bumped into that limitation at all. And Sheets is free, which is a big attraction. A lot of people used Excel maybe when they worked for a company and the company paid for it, but now that they've got to foot the bill, Sheets coming in free is a nice attraction. Excel runs as part of Microsoft 365, which starts at $70 a year, but you get more than Excel. You get Excel, Word, PowerPoint, email, as well as OneDrive with 1 terabyte of data. So you get a pretty good value for your money, but you still have to pay for the whole package. And since we've got a small group, certainly if you have questions, comments, just go ahead and ask away.
Yeah, you mentioned something about live stream. What is that?
So live stream is where, and I'll show you at the end of class how you can get to that on our website, but that's where people can come in from our website or from YouTube and see the broadcast. But it's like TV. We call it Get Set Up TV on the website. So you can watch the class, but the guide can't see you and can't hear you. So it's like TV. Yeah. So I'll show you how that works at the end of class.
Thank you.
Sure. Mm-hmm. So how do you get access to Sheets? First, you have to have a Google account. Hopefully, do you both have Google accounts?
Yeah.
All right. So if you don't, very quick and easy to set up a Google account. I'll kind of skip over that since you've got accounts. There's 2 ways to access it with that Google account. You can, as we mentioned, you can get to it via a browser, and that's what I'm going to use today. And that is the full feature version of the of Google Sheets. You can also download an app onto your smartphone or tablet, but it is not the full functionality you get from the browser, and it looks slightly different. The navigation's a little different. So we're going to be using the browser today, but just so you know, you can access it from an app as well. And so what we're going to do at this point is I'm going to shrink this down. And speaking of browsers, open up a separate browser that already has Google set up. And this may be a little hard to read, but this is primarily my cheat sheets. This is where all the action is going to be. But I'm at www.google.com. So if you're not familiar with Google, that's always a good place to start. If you don't have an account, you can create an account from here. If you have an account but aren't signed in, you can sign in from here. Once you're signed in from here, it'll look like mine. Up in the upper right corner, they'll have your picture or your initials, depending on if you've set up or not. And you can have multiple Google accounts. This is my personal account. This is my work account. I've got, I think, 2, maybe 3 other accounts. I lose track. You can set up as many as you want. And right beside it is what's called the waffle. It looks a little bit like a round waffle. And that shows you all the Google apps that come with your Google account. We do have a class called Introduction to Google Apps where we talk about what all these different apps are, not in great detail, obviously, but that's a good class if you don't know what all this stuff is. But for today, we're going to zero in on Google Sheets. So it's right here. I'm going to click that, and that will take me to the Google Sheets homepage. This is broken down very much like the Excel homepage. Top part is where you can start a new spreadsheet. The bottom part has all the spreadsheets you have worked on before or have access to. You can start a blank spreadsheet by clicking here, which does just what it says, creates a blank spreadsheet. I'm going to click on the Sheets Home icon here, and it's going to take me back home. So wherever you are, you can always go home. You can also start with a template. If you're not familiar with templates, templates are pre-formatted spreadsheets. If you click on the template gallery, it'll open up the full template gallery, and there's lots of templates, annual budget, a travel planner, to-do lists, all sorts of calendars, wedding planners, travel planners, lots of business related stuff, invoices, expense reports, etc. You can kind of scroll through these after class and take a look at them. I'm going to grab one just as a for instance. We'll take the annual budget. If you click on that, it's going to copy that template and create a Google Sheet for you. It has the same name as the template. You probably want to change that. You don't have to, but we'll call this Wade's budget, Wade's annual budget. And if you're, again, I'm going to assume you don't have familiarity with Excel, but it's like Excel. It has multiple sheets in the workbook. It starts on this one sheet where it really just tells you a little bit about the template, how it's configured. And then it has a tab for expenses, a tab for income, and then a summary tab where it'll have some graphs and summary information. But as I mentioned, it's a pre-formatted spreadsheet. It's already got my column headers for all the months. It's got row sections for the different categories. I've got where I actually enter the information. So whatever my credit card amount was for January, $1,200, 1423. So you just start filling in the information. So you can actually use a template, not understanding anything about Excel. If you use it the way it's laid out, you can kind of see as you go over to the end, it's got your totals and your averages, per monthly averages. These are all using formulas and functions that we'll talk about. So if you know how to use it, you can go in and edit these because you may not have children's expenses. So if you don't need this, you can reuse these for other things. And that's some of the things we'll talk about. Questions about templates in general, how that works? One difference you'll notice is when I'm done, I'm just going to click home. There's no save button. You don't save in Google. Google automatically saves everything you do. That's common across all the Google Office apps. So I'm just going to click home again. And it now puts that sheet down here, Wade's annual budget. I can open it again, work on it some more. Let's go down to the bottom section. Initially, you're only going to have a few of these, so it's not a big problem. But over time, it'll start to get longer and more complicated. And you kind of need a way to manage this section. So there's two ways you can manage it. One is there's some filters. Right now, it's filtered by owned by anyone, which means it's really not filtered. This is everything. But I can say, just show me the ones that I own, that are owned by me, the ones I started. And it'll just show me mine. And, or I could filter it by not owned by me. And this will show me sheets that someone else owns and they've shared it with me. So this is owned by Michael. This is owned by Hannah. They have given me access to that document, that sheet. I can open that and I can do anything she's given me the right to do. And in this case, I've got editing privileges, so I can go in and add information, change information, just as if I was the one that created it. When I'm done, I'll go back home. This little icon just lets you know that it is shared. So I'm going to go back to owned by me for now. So that's where we want to start. The other thing I can do, so that's filtering. I can also sort. And here's my sort options over here under the A through Z. Right now it's sorted by last opened by me, and it shows you right here what it's sorted by, so you can tell how it's currently sorted. I could say last modified by me or last modified by anyone, which only makes sense if you're showing owned by anyone. Or you can just sort it alphabetically by title. I'm going to put this back to last opened by me. That's the way I usually have mine. And last and owned by me is the way I normally have mine set up. Questions so far?
Yeah, so far I got to the annual budget tracker, and it has the description of how to use the template, but I couldn't figure out how to get the actual spreadsheet.
It's down at the bottom. It's a different sheet. So you got to hear the setup. Just click the tab right beside it.
Oh.
And that'll bring you in.
It says expenses.
Expenses, and then here's the income.
Got it.
And then this pulls from both of those sheets to give you the summary information.
Got it.
So it's taking that information I just entered and start to do some graphs and some summary tables. It's a fairly complex sheet.
Got it.
Okay, cool. There's a couple of other things we haven't talked about yet. Let's touch them briefly and quickly here. Anytime you see a triple dot, you want to touch it because that means there's more things here. From here, I can rename that file. I can delete it if I don't want it anymore. Or I can open it in a new tab. If I do that, it's going to open it in a separate tab up here in my browser. Let me go back here. If I open it, oh crap, this one. If I just click and open it, it's going to open it in the same tab that I'm in. So you got two choices there. The way you might want, the way I typically want to have more than one open is if I'm going to be copying things back and forth. Maybe I've got last year's budget and now I'm starting this year's budget and I want to copy some stuff over to create the new one. So I'll have them together so I can copy and paste. I can go over here and copy something, come back over here and paste it. But you got two choices anyway. If you open in a new tab or if you just double click here, it opens it in the same tab. There's one other thing I want to show you here, which is the last icon we haven't talked about. And that's this one. It's called the Open File Picker, which is a little cryptic. What that does is that gives me access to a sheet that is not in this list. This is what's in Google Drive for me. And again, the way things get in this list, either I created it or somebody shared it with me. But there are other scenarios. I'm going to click here. There may be something that I put into Google Drive that I downloaded from the internet, but I've never opened it. So that's one scenario where there'd be something over here in Google Drive that I need to pull in for the first time. I also may want to get an Excel spreadsheet and convert it. And that's over on my device. Anytime you see the word upload in Google, it means go outside of Google Drive and pull something from your device. So I'm going to click upload. Then I'm going to click select a file from your device. I'm on a Windows device, so that opens File Explorer. So I can pick something out of my documents. I can grab something from my downloads. I can go anywhere that I can go with File Explorer, even to my cloud drives. So for example, I'm going to go up to OneDrive, which is the Microsoft cloud storage system, and go into here and grab this Excel spreadsheet. And you can see it is an Excel spreadsheet. I'm going to open it. And it is uploading it now and converting it into a Google Sheet. Here it is, same name. It's a copy of what was out there in Excel format. I can now edit this as if I created it here. I can change this to be 5-1. And these are all formulas referencing that cell. So everything changes. No difference than if I had created it here. I did mention there's some functions and features that Excel has that there's not an equivalent in Google. So sometimes you'll convert something from Excel and then there's something there that doesn't translate. So you do need to check your spreadsheet and make sure it looks okay. But in this case, it converted clean. Everything is there and works. So that's how you can bring in something from outside of Google and even bring in an Excel spreadsheet. Questions? Okay, I'm going to do one thing I normally do before class, but I can work it into the class here because I want to create a spreadsheet for us to use in class today. And the way I do that is I've got a Get Set Up Sheets Master that I use for the classes. So I'm going to open this. And this is what we're going to use, but I don't want to use my master. In this case, I'm using this like a template, but it's something I created instead of a template that I get from Google. And so what I need to do is go to File and make a copy because I don't want to mess up my master. And I can now just call this the Get Set Up class for 5-4 and save it. It opens that in a new tab. Here's the one that I started with, and I'm going to delete that one so I don't get confused and mess up my my master. So now there's our spreadsheet for the class today. All right, I'm going to catch up. I'm way ahead of myself, but that's okay. We are up to here. So again, I'm going to assume that you're not familiar with spreadsheets, but we're going to go over this fairly quickly. But if you do have questions, stop me and ask a question. But this is a spreadsheet. Spreadsheets are set up in sets of rows and columns. The columns are lettered, the rows are numbered. The intersection of a row and column is a cell. That's how you get information into a spreadsheet. You have to enter it into a cell. Cells are referenced by their column and row. So this is C8. It tells you up here where it is, C8. So you don't have to do what I just did and try and figure it out. There's 4 different types of things you can put into a cell. You can put numbers, text, dates, and formulas. Let's look at each one of those. So in this cell, which is B3, I'll click on it and it will tell me that. You can see 5.28. One thing that's important to know about spreadsheets is that what you see isn't necessarily what you have. You can format. So in this case, it shows me 5.28. If I look up here in what's called the formula bar, what I actually have in that cell is 5.278456. I've said to format it to 2 decimal places, so that's why I'm saying 5.28. I can change the number of decimal places by clicking here. Whatever, however I want to round that. So you can also double click the cell and it will flip and show you the contents and make it editable. Unless you double click in it, it just shows you the results, if you will. Text is kind of what you see is what you get. What you type up here is what you see in the cell. But dates are really a special type of number. Works like other numbers. It says Thursday, January 2nd, 2020. What's actually stored is 1/2/2020. If I want to change that, I can double click and it actually brings up a calendar. So I can change that to January 17th. But again, how I'm formatting it is what I see. And if I print it, it's what I print. It's not what's stored. What is stored is the actual date itself as a number. You can change the format by coming up here and go down here to date. And that changes it to a short version. A handy icon up here is this reverse arrow, which is undo, which puts things back like they started. The last thing we'll talk about on this sheet is formulas. So again, what I'm seeing here is 525. Here is the actual formula. So you can put in formulas. They're like math formulas. And as I did in this one, you can make them fairly complex using all the normal rules of algebra in terms of how to use parentheses. So that's a formula. We're going to dig into those a little deeper. But again, I can double click and it'll bring the formula down here. And I can edit it from down here. I can edit it from up there. Questions about cell contents?
Wait, on the dates, can you change the date to like a 1/17 without having the 20 as a short date?
Yeah, if you there. You can, and
Is there such a thing as maybe the number? I'm trying to think of how Excel does it.
Yeah, it's, I thought there's another option down here. Well, this is the short version, but I know there's more than that. Let me see, hang on.
Number.
And because, oh, here it is, more formats. That's what I was trying to find. I think it was just down at the bottom. And I couldn't get my cursor down there.
That's the bar.
Yeah, and there's more date and time formats. And now this is where you can get to lots of different formats.
Yeah, great. Yeah. Thank you.
Lots of them. Okay. Knew they were there. I just couldn't get my that little bottom piece to show. All right. Now let me mention before I move on, because we're gonna talk about editing the contents, but this kind of gets up to the formula area up here, and this is equivalent to the ribbon in Excel. But I think it's a simpler and easier to use, especially if you're not an Excel person and you're new to spreadsheets. It works the same way. You click on the tab, it'll show you all the commands under that tab. So all the edit commands, the view commands, the insert commands. I just came up to grab something from the format commands. What I like about Google that Excel doesn't have as nicely done is this shortcuts bar. And here's another triple dot. You can see there's lots of different shortcuts. So most of the things I want to do, I can pull it right out of here and I never have to click on anything up here. It's got the triple dots because I'm not displaying the whole sheet. If I was playing showing the whole sheet, it would all fit, but I'm trying to keep my slides over here as well. So that's why some of it doesn't show. But that's the basic difference between the Google menu toolbar and the Excel ribbon if you're used to Excel. So let's go to the next sheet and talk a little bit more about formulas. And I'm going to go through this quickly again, assuming you're somewhat familiar with this, but stop and ask questions if you have them. I typically say entering a formula is like using a calculator, except you put the equal first. So if I wanted to add 42 and 148, I would put equal, and then I would put 42, and hit the plus sign, enter 148, hit the enter sign, and there's my result. So just like enter it into a calculator, except I start with the equal sign. Again, there's my formula. I can change it up here. I can change it down here by double clicking. This isn't done too often that you do formulas with numbers in a spreadsheet. You're typically working with cells. So let's do a formula to divide the contents of B3 by 10. Start with an equal. I could type B3, but it's quicker and easier to just click on that cell. Also, you're not going to make typos, which I would probably do. And it copies that B3 into my formula. Then I can do my slash and 10 to divide by 10 and hit enter. And I get 190. I get B3 divided by 10, which is 190 divided by 10, which is indeed 19. And you can also have formulas that only reference other cells. So if I wanted to subtract this cell from this cell, I would say equals this cell minus this cell, enter, and there's my result. So in this case, I'm only working with cells, which is more common. Now, the magic of spreadsheets is that you can work with other cells, and if you change any of those cells that are being referenced, it changes through all the resulting cells. So if I change this to be 387, both of these change because they're both referencing that cell. And that's really the magic of spreadsheets. I mentioned that dates are numbers, so you can do math with dates as well. So if I want to know how many days it is from December 4th to December 24th, I can treat it like any other number, equals this one minus this one. It tells me it's 20 days. You probably could have figured that out, but if we were doing that till 2022, you probably couldn't do that one in your head. So there's the answer. It's 750 days. So that comes in handy a lot in spreadsheets to be able to do math with numbers. And before we move on, I'll show you a trick which also works in Excel, but in terms of setting up column headers, the one we saw in the template, it had a column header for each month. Sometimes you have a table that has data is set up by day of the week. I could type Monday, then I could type Tuesday and type Wednesday. That's very tedious and I'm very lazy. So what you can do is grab this bottom right corner and your cursor is going to change to a plus sign, drag that over, and it will replicate that over, copying that pattern. It saves me a lot of time setting up my column headers. It works whether I'm formatting it as names or dates because I'm working with that number, which is underneath. And it works for months as well. And if you're actually using row labels instead of column headers, it works copying down as well. So nice little trick for setting up your tables. So speaking of tables, let's go to a real table. This is more typical of what you're going to be doing. And this is a table for my club, Wade's Club. These are the column headers, the member name, the tier they're in, what they're getting charged each month, and percent of the total each person is contributing. So I'm going to do some work with this table. And then within the table is all the members. So I'm going to first count the members, and yeah, I can count there's 4. But let's say my club grows and I've got over 200 people, so I don't want to try and count it. And we're going to start using functions. Let me jump up. And a function is like a canned formula. It starts with an equal sign like a formula, but then you put the function name and then you put the arguments. And the arguments are typically the starting cell and the ending cell. So in this case, this function says sum up the contents of cells A1 through A20. So let's put in a function here. And the functions are, let me slide this over so I can get to it. Well, I'll just click the triple dot because they're inside the triple dot and they're right here. So if I click the down arrow, it will open up the functions and it puts the most commonly used ones at the top. And what I want to do is count. So I just select count and it starts building my function for me. So it's put the name and it's put the parentheses. I just need to add the arguments, the starting cell and the ending cell. I can just select that by touching the first cell, holding the mouse button and selecting all the cells I want it to count. I could type B4 colon B8 as well, but I don't like typing. I like entering it directly. And there it is. Here's my function equals count B4 colon B8. B4 through B8, that's correct. 4 looks like the right answer. Gonna do a couple more of these. If you have questions, stop me. But if I wanted to sum up what's my revenue for the month, I'm gonna go grab another function. This time I want to use the sum. And I'm going to say what range I want to sum across for my argument. Hit enter, 606. You can have that answer anywhere in the spreadsheet you want it. You could put it over here, just whatever cell you click on when you start building your function. So I'm going to put the average over here instead of underneath the columns like I was doing before, just to show you that works. Grab another function. I'm going to do the average. Grab here, pull down, and there's my average. Questions about functions?
You couldn't do the average off of the sum. You have to do it off of the column individually.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you could actually, if you wanted to put a formula, I could create a formula that says equal to the total divided by the count and get the same number. So I could do that as a formula instead. I could say
The other is really
equals,
easier.
yeah, divided by this, and it should give me the same answer. Yeah, it does. But yeah, that's the thing. The functions are kind of pre-formatted formulas and saves you some clicks.
Mm-hmm.
And it also does something, those would keep working regardless. So never mind that. I'm going to use my undo to get rid of that one because I don't want to keep that one. But yeah, good question. I'll mention, because it sounds like both of you have used Excel before already. We do have an Excel intermediate class where we go a lot deeper into functions. We talk about logical functions and text functions and other functions. For this class, that's as far as I'm going to go with functions. But if you're interested in going deeper, because functions work exactly the same way in Google Sheets as they do in Excel, and most of them are the same. What I do want to show you in this basics class is another formula that's very useful in spreadsheets. I want to calculate the percent, which is a pretty common thing you'd want to do. So I'm going to do another formula for this. I'm going to say equals whatever John Doe paid divided by the total of all members. And that gives me 33%, which seems like it's probably right. I want to copy that formula down. Two ways to do it. I can grab the bottom right and drag it down. We'll do that one the first time. But I got a problem now. And it's saying dividing by 0. Let's check the formula. C4 divided by C10, C4 divided by C10. That looks good and that looks right. If I go to the second one, it says C5 divided by C11. C5, that looks good. C11, that doesn't look good. I want to divide by C10 again. So what's happening is when you copy it, it increments all the references in the formula, in this case, the numerator and the denominator. I just want to increment the numerator, not the denominator. So I can change that, and this is a rote memory. Luckily, it's the same one that Excel uses if you're used to doing this in Excel. You put a $ in front of the column, you put a $ in front of the row. This time I'm just gonna select all the cells and do a Control-D. Luckily, it's the same shortcut as Excel, and it copies those down. So that's the other trick is absolute references, where you tell it, don't change that one. One more quick function just to check and make sure my formulas are right, because I know this should total to be 100% if I did it right. So I'm going to grab a function and sum that up just to make sure it's right. And it is 100%. So my formulas must be right. Questions about formulas and functions? Okay, I'm going to quickly go over formatting, and because this again is pretty similar to what you would do other places, but on this sheet, this looks nice, nicely formatted. When I create a new spreadsheet, I get the numbers working first. I don't worry about what it looks like, and so I end up with something looking like this. And now I want to format it. But formatting works like formatting anywhere else for the most part. If I want this to be bolded, I bold it. The biggest challenge is learning the icons that Google uses, which are different than the ones that Microsoft uses. But the nice thing about spreadsheets is I don't have to click here and then do this one and click here and do that one. You can work on rows and columns. So I'm going to select that whole row and say bold that entire row. Much faster. Same thing if I want to center this information. I could click the entire row, or I could select a range of cells and say, I want to center those. Looks nicer. I want to format these cells. These should be currency, and it should be formatted as a currency. That one is already. But let's grab that whole column and come up here to currency. And I can also, maybe I don't charge anything below a full $1, so I don't need to take it out to 2 decimal places. I can just take it to 1 decimal place and I'm good. I can do the same thing here with the percentages. Maybe I want to only have 1 decimal place is good enough for me. I don't need to be that accurate. So it's starting to shape up. I've got a problem here because I'm chopping off part of this column header. I can click that column header and come over here to this icon, which is wrapping. And I want this version. I want to wrap the text. The good thing is if you hover over any of these icons, it tells you what they are. I want to wrap. So I'll click that one. It wraps that around. Looks better. Would look even better if it was centered. So let's center it. Looks nice.
You can't drag the column over like you can in Excel?
Yes, I'll show you that one as well. Yeah. So I got a problem here too. It's kind of hard to see, but if I put something in this cell, you can tell that it's going to chop off part of it. So I could do the same 2 steps I did over here, but if you're lazy like I am, instead of doing 2 steps, you can do the same thing. And again, Excel does this. I can copy that formatting to another cell or another range of cells, and it will automatically apply that. Now I've got some blank space here now that I've moved these underneath each other. And this is what Judy was asking. So I can come up here, grab this border between those 2 columns and manually shorten it up. Oop, I did a little bit too much. Let me come out here. But yeah, you can do the same thing. You can manually adjust it, or you can go there and double click and it will narrow it down to fit. Now I've lost my wrapping. I can wrap it again. And adjust it that way. So the same tricks work. If I had this one looking like this, I could do the double click and it would widen it to fit the widest cell in that column, which is very handy with names because you don't know if there's a name way down here. If I had 200 rows in here instead of 4, there could be a really long name down here somewhere. So if I'm adjusting it manually, I'm just adjusting it for what I can see. If I double click, it adjusts it for all the things I can't see. Let's do a few more things here. I want to put borders around it to kind of set the table off from the rest of the sheet. And that is up here, borders. And I'm going to click all borders. You can have different other variations, just one side, just the top, just the bottom, but I want everything. I want to highlight the column headers, make them stand out. Come up here to my fill, grab a nice light blue. So I'm getting pretty close. I'm going to fix the title. I probably want to bold that and make it a little bigger and maybe even change the font. Better, but I want it centered instead of left justified. Grab all the cells in that table, select those and go to, and you can tell that I'm still learning Google's icons. Here it is. Merge horizontally. So it's now merged all those cells into one cell. Now I can center it. And I'm done. Did all that pretty fast. But again, most of that, if you do Excel, Excel does all of those things and it does it pretty much the same way. It's just the icons look different is the biggest factor. Questions about any of that? Right. 2 other things I'll cover quickly here. We're just about to run out of time, but I showed you how to bring in an Excel spreadsheet and turn it into a Google Sheet. I can go the reverse direction. So I can come up here to File and say Download. And I have an option of Excel Sheet. Google knows that Excel is the big dog in town, and so it makes it easy to move back and forth between Excel and Google. You can also do it in ODS format, or you can create a PDF. So you got several other options. But in this case, I want to take it to Excel, so it makes it very easy. I just click here. It defaults to save file, which is what you normally want to do. But if you wanted to actually open it in Excel and work on it, I can do that as well. But in this case, I want to save it in Excel format. Maybe a friend of mine wants a copy of this. So I can do that and say, okay. It's going to put that in my downloads folder. So I open File Explorer, go down to my downloads. And there it is. Get set up class 5.4 in Excel format. Last thing I want to show you is sharing. You know, at the first we were talking about when we were back over here that there were some documents that were owned by someone else that have been shared with me. Hannah shared that spreadsheet with me and I could edit it. So let me show you how to do that. Let's go back into our class sheet. And it's this share button up here in the upper right. Right now it tells me when I hover over it, it tells me if it's been shared, and it says right now it's private. I'm the only one that has access to it, but I can now share it. If I want to share it with my wife, oops, I better spell it right. You can start typing, and if they're in your Google contacts, it'll start popping up your Google contacts. If the person isn't in your Google contacts, you have to type the entire email. I can just pick her from here. It makes it easy. If I want to send it to someone else, I can add additional email addresses up here. This is where I determine what she can do. She can edit it. She can add comments, but she can't change the contents, or she can just view it. If I'm sharing something, I will typically just set it to view, and then they can still make a copy like I did to copy my master over to the this spreadsheet. They can copy what I shared with them and have their own copy, but they can't monkey with mine. If we're going to collaborate on that document, I can make that person an editor. They can edit it. I can edit it. Google keeps track of who changed what. We do have a class that goes over how that works. It gets pretty challenging if you're going to have multiple people editing at the same time. So we have a class that shows you how to track who's made what changes and how to accept changes, reject changes, etc. I'll just say editor for now. You can type a message here if you want to, need to, and hit send. It'll send an email with a link to that sheet. They can click that link and open it, and it will put it into their home in that shared owned by someone else.
Do they need to have sheets to open it?
I've never been able to test this, but supposedly you can open it as a guest. If you don't have a Google account, it will still open it in Sheets. So they still need to know how to navigate Sheets, but it'll open it as a guest. Mm-hmm. Typically, you would be sharing with someone that does have a Google account, though. But my understanding is you can do that. I haven't been able to test that.
Thank you.
One other thing I didn't show you that you can do, let's just cancel this, that if you want to send it to a lot of people, you can copy a link. So maybe you're in a Facebook group and you're going to share this sheet with everybody in your Facebook group. You can copy a link and paste it in your Facebook group page, and then anybody that clicks that link can get access to it. So there's a way to share it with a lot of people. I've never done that, but that's an option as well. All right, we are pretty much out of time. I think that's everything I wanted to show you.
Very clear. Wait, thank you.
Okay, all right, thanks, thank you. I do have some closing slides to go over. I'm just gonna close this down and open this back up. So this is the end of the class, and I do want to thank you for attending. And if you, speaking of social media, if you do use social media, hopefully you will share your experiences. And if you do, tag us. So we'll get a copy of that, and we'll obviously like your comments. I mentioned these related classes, Introduction to Google Apps, which goes over all those things in the waffle, and Sharing and Collaboration, which goes over that sharing part in much more detail in terms of how that works. Okay. In terms of closing, you'll get an email after class, and that email will include some class notes. The first part is the class notes themselves, and it will include links to some websites that have additional information related to what we've talked about. If you enjoyed the class and want to share the class, you can send a link to the class by Facebook, by posting it on your Facebook page, or you can send out a link via email, whichever you're more comfortable doing. There'll be links to 3 classes that you may want to take. If you want to take one of these classes, you can click the link in the email. It'll take you to the registration page for that class. Give feedback link opens up the feedback form. Very quick and easy. 2 questions. How do you want to rate the class itself? 1 to 5 stars. How do you rate the guide? 1 to 5 stars. A place for comments. Comments aren't required, but greatly appreciated. If you're enjoying being part of the Get Set Up community, there's ways you can take a larger part. If you would like to participate in or host an interest group, we don't have a Google Sheets interest group. So if you'd like to form a group, let us know. Same email address we've used before. If there's a class you'd like to see us teach you can't find, or if you belong to an organization you think would be a good partner for us, just let us know through help@getsetup.io. And of course, that's where you go to get a copy of the recording as well. And the last link takes you to, it's called View Schedule, and it'll take you back to our website where you can book another class. I'm not going to cover the whole thing here, but there's a few things that we've added fairly recently. I want to quickly cover right in the middle of the page, View My Complete Schedule. That's a shortcut to your schedule. It shows you everything you've registered so far, all the classes you've registered for. When it's time to take the class, you can launch from here. Instead of having to find that email, you can still use the email if that's easier for you, whichever way you like better. If something comes up, you need to cancel a class, you can cancel a class and free that seat up for somebody else. We talked about live streaming early on. That's what TV is down here. This is Get Set Up TV. I'm going to click that and it probably is going to take me into my own class, which always gives me a little bit weird feeling.
Can hear it.
So I'm going to get out of there. You can tell it's on a slight delay, but that's basically what it is. You can watch a class that's in progress. The guide can't see you. You can't talk to the guide. It's like TV, which is why we call it TV, but there's something always on. So it's a good way to preview a class that you think you may want to take, but you want to see a little bit of it to see if it's what you thought it was. Or maybe you got a half hour and you want to just pop in and watch whatever's on, kind of like turning on the TV to see what's on the TV. That's why we use that analogy. If you're looking for a class and you know the name of the class or the general type of class, we talked about Excel. If you're looking for Excel classes, you can type Excel. And here's that Excel intermediate class I mentioned that goes deeper into everything we talked about. So it'll take you to this class. We talk about all the different types of functions, sorting, filtering, creating charts and graphs and printing. Some of this is peculiar to Excel, but most of this, there's a corollary in Sheets as well, if you want to use Sheets. If you want to see a Google Sheets intermediate class, you can request that at helpitgetsetup.io. I'm almost out of time. Last thing I'll show you, that if there's a guide that you like and you want to see other things that guide is teaching, you can put the guide's name here, hit enter. It'll show you the classes that they're teaching. And typically it's for the next 2 weeks and it's in chronological order. So this starts with my classes starting tomorrow and moving forward. So you can look at the classes for that guide. And if you see something you want to take, you can just click book. And it'll take you to that class. Okay. All right, we have run out of time, so I do want to stop now so you can get to your next class. I want to thank you for attending. Hope you enjoyed the class and hope I'll see you again in another class real soon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. So have a good evening.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Bye.